I need these flowers delivered to my entire team within the hour. CO Ji-hwan stood in the middle of Ellison Flowers at 4:41 p.m. on a Tuesday, his charcoal suit still crisp despite the 14-hour flight from Seoul, his leather briefcase gripping a stack of cancellation notices he'd signed that morning. The third vacation shutdown in 8 months. His executive board had applauded the efficiency. His department heads had stopped making eye contact. Naomi Ellison didn't look up from the wilting orchid she was pruning with vintage shears, her calloused fingers precise as a surgeon's. Supermarkets 2 blocks down, they sell generic apology roses for $12.99. Ji-hwan's hand froze on his phone. He'd been mid-text to Minji, his assistant, about rescheduling tomorrow's shareholder call. No one had dismissed him in 7 years, not since the merger that made him the youngest hotel group CEO in South Korea. I don't want generic. Then you don't want flowers. Naomi finally turned, her deep brown eyes cataloging him in 3 seconds. Expensive watch he checked compulsively, shoulders tight enough to snap, the particular exhaustion of a man who'd forgotten what rest looked like. She was 53. Her natural hair pulled into a low bun threaded with silver, wearing a mustard sweater and a beige apron stained with soil that would never fully wash out. You want a Band-Aid for guilt? I don't sell those. I canceled their vacation. The words came out flat, factual, the same tone he'd used in the board meeting when approving the decision. For the 3rd time. I need to apologize? Naomi set down the shears with a soft click against the worn wooden counter, the sound somehow louder than it should be. Or do you need to change? Ji-hwan stopped checking his phone. Both, he said, and for the first time in 8 months, the word didn't feel like a lie. Naomi studied him for one more breath, then reached for white anemones from the ceramic vase behind her, sincerity without spectacle, and pink camellias that spoke of respect earned through action, not titles. Her hands moved with the efficiency of 30 years in this shop, assembling an arrangement that somehow looked like an apology that meant it. Olive branches for the piece that required actual work. Brown paper wrapping, natural twine tied in a knot her grandfather had taught her before the shears became hers. Deliver them yourself. Look your team in the eyes. Don't send your assistant. Naomi slid the bouquet across the counter, and Ji-hwan noticed the crack in the ceramic mug beside the register, the way afternoon light turned the dust motes into something close to holy. And if you actually do it, come back and tell me. Why would I come back? Because if you don't, Naomi said, already returning to her orchids, it means the flowers were wasted on you. Ji-hwan left $17 on the counter. She hadn't told him the price, and walked out into the autumn cold with the arrangement cradled like something fragile he'd forgotten how to hold. 4 days later, at 5:43 p.m. on a Saturday, he pushed the door open again, and Naomi didn't ask if he'd delivered them himself. She just poured chamomile tea into the cracked mug and slid it across the counter. They cried, Ji-hwan said quietly. His tie loosened for the first time that week. I did too. And that was how it started. Not with fireworks or orchestras, but with a 55-year-old man learning that some things couldn't be delegated, and a 53-year-old woman remembering that not every story ended the way hers almost had. If you've ever walked into a room and changed someone's life without meaning to, or had your own life quietly rearranged by a stranger who saw what you needed before you did, then you know this story isn't fiction. It's the kind of truth that sneaks up on you when you've stopped believing in that kind of thing. Stay with us. Because what happens next proved that 53 isn't the end of anything. It's just the beginning of knowing exactly what you want and who deserves to stay. Ji-hwan came back on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. No appointment, no text message warning. Naomi was rearranging the window display, late-season chrysanthemums in burgundy and gold, when she heard the small brass bell above the door. She didn't turn around immediately, just called over her shoulder. If you're here to apologize for apologizing, I'm closing in 30 minutes. I'm here because I don't know what half these flowers mean. Ji-hwan set his briefcase down by the door, a gesture that felt like a small surrender. And my daughter's birthday is in 2 weeks. I've sent her money for 3 years. She hasn't cashed a single check. That made Naomi turn. She saw it then, in the way his hands didn't know where to rest. the particular shame of a parent who'd missed too many years to count them accurately anymore. Her own daughter Renee was 28 now, living 40 minutes away, visiting every Sunday out of duty more than desire, since her father's heart attack 5 years ago. Naomi understood the weight of trying to rebuild something you'd let crumble through benign neglect. "How old is she?" Naomi asked, already moving toward the cooler where she kept the more delicate stems. 32. She's a stylist in Seoul, works with K-pop groups. There was pride in his voice, and regret so thick you could drown in it. She was 14 when I started traveling every week, 17 when her mother and I divorced, 22 when she stopped answering my calls. Naomi pulled out Lily of the Valley, their tiny white bells promising the return of happiness without demanding it. These say, "I remember who you were, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to see who you became." Ji-hwan's throat worked. That's exact. Flowers don't lie. Naomi began building the arrangement, her movements practiced but not mechanical, each stem placed with intention. People do that part just fine on their own. They worked in silence for 11 minutes, Naomi assembling, Ji-hwan watching with the focus he usually reserved for acquisition contracts. She added white roses for new beginnings, soft pink peonies for the vulnerability required to earn forgiveness. When she finished, the bouquet looked like a prayer you'd be afraid to say out loud. "You have a daughter too," Ji-hwan said, not quite a question. Naomi's hands stilled on the brown paper wrapping. "What makes you say that?" "The way you looked at me when I talked about mine, like you know exactly what I'm trying to fix." He pulled out his wallet, but Naomi waved it away. "First one's free. The second arrangement, the one you'll need to send when she doesn't respond to these, that one you pay for." She slid the flowers across the counter, their stems wrapped in damp paper towels and protective cellophane. "And yes, I have a daughter, 28. She visits every Sunday at 2 p.m. and leaves by 4. We repita o capituo. The flowers that saved an apology, y continue por favor." Ji-hwan came back on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., no appointment, no text message warning. Naomi was rearranging the window display, late-season chrysanthemums in burgundy and gold, when she heard the small brass bell above the door. She didn't turn around immediately, just called over her shoulder. "If you're here to apologize for apologizing, I'm closing in 30 minutes. I'm here because I don't know what half these flowers mean." Ji-hwan set his briefcase down by the door, a gesture that felt like a small surrender. "And my daughter's birthday is in 2 weeks. I've sent her money for 3 years. She hasn't cashed a single check." That made Naomi turn. She saw it then, in the way his hands didn't know where to rest. The particular shame of a parent who'd missed too many years to count them accurately anymore. Her own daughter Renee was 28 now, living 40 minutes away, visiting every Sunday out of duty, more than desire since her father's heart attack 5 years ago. Naomi understood the weight of trying to rebuild something you'd let crumble through benign neglect. "How old is she?" Naomi asked, already moving toward the cooler where she kept the more delicate stems. 32. She's a stylist in Seoul, works with K-pop groups. There was pride in his voice, and regret so thick you could drown in it. She was 14 when I started traveling every week, 17 when her mother and I divorced, 22 when she stopped answering my calls. Naomi pulled out Lily of the Valley, their tiny white bells promising the return of happiness without demanding it. These say, "I remember who you were, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to see who you became." Ji-hwan's throat worked. That's exact. Flowers don't lie. Naomi began building the arrangement, her movements practiced but not mechanical, each stem placed with intention. People do that part just fine on their own. They worked in silence for 11 minutes, Naomi assembling, Ji-hwan watching with the focus he usually reserved for acquisition contracts. She added white roses for new beginnings, soft pink peonies for the vulnerability required to earn forgiveness. When she finished, the bouquet looked like a prayer you'd be afraid to say out loud. "You have a daughter, too," Ji-hwan said, not quite a question. Naomi's hands stilled on the brown paper wrapping. "What makes you say that?" "The way you looked at me when I talked about mine. Like you know exactly what I'm trying to fix." He pulled out his wallet, but Naomi waved it away. And there's a photo by the register. Young woman with your eyes, holding a diploma. Naomi glanced at the frame she'd stopped really seeing 3 years ago. Renee at her MBA graduation, smiling with her mouth but not quite her eyes. The way she'd looked at everything since the funeral. First one's free. The second arrangement, the one you'll need to send when she doesn't respond to these, that one you pay for. She slid the flowers across the counter, their stems wrapped in damp paper towels and protective cellophane. And yes, I have a daughter, 28. She visits every Sunday at 2 p.m. and leaves by 4. We talk about her job, the weather, whether I need anything from the store. We haven't had a real conversation in 5 years. Since your husband died. Ji-hwan said it gently, the way you'd handle something cracked. Since I let him work himself to death and did nothing to stop it. The words came out harder than Naomi intended, sharp enough to cut. Robert was a contractor. Good man. Provided for us his whole life. Never missed a payment. Never complained. Had a heart attack on a job site at 51 because he wouldn't take a day off even when his chest hurt for 3 weeks. She turned away, busying herself with the ribbon scraps on the counter. Renee thinks I should have forced him to see a doctor. She's probably right. Ji-hwan stood there holding the bouquet like it weighed more than it should. My daughter thinks I chose the company over her. She's not wrong either. They looked at each other then, 2 people standing in a flower shop at dusk, holding the weight of children who'd grown up feeling second best. The afternoon light slanted through the window at an angle that turned everything soft and forgiving, even though neither of them felt particularly deserving of it. The thing about flowers, Naomi said finally, is that they're honest about their lifespan. They bloom, they're beautiful, and then they die. No apologies, no excuses. They just are what they are for as long as they last. She met his eyes. People spend their whole lives pretending they're not on the same clock. Ji-hwan's hand tightened on the bouquet. Is that why you work with flowers? Because they're more honest than people? I work with flowers because they don't expect me to be anything other than someone who knows how to keep them alive a little longer. Naomi finally smiled. Small and tired and real. And because after Robert died, this shop was the only place where I could breathe. I haven't slept properly in 8 years, Ji-hwan said, the confession slipping out before he could stop it. Not since the divorce. I lie in hotel rooms staring at ceilings in 7 different countries, and I can't remember the last time I woke up rested. Naomi nodded slowly. I have panic attacks in the grocery store. Small ones. Nothing dramatic. Just suddenly can't breathe in the produce section for no good reason. She'd never told Renee that. Never told anyone. Started about 2 years ago. I thought they'd stop eventually. They haven't. Have you seen anyone about it? Have you? They both already knew the answer. Ji-hwan checked his watch. That compulsive gesture again, then seemed to catch himself doing it. I have a video call with the Seoul office in 40 minutes. I should go. But he didn't move toward the door. Send the flowers overnight express, Naomi said, and write a note. Not a card. A real note, in your handwriting. Tell her one specific memory from when she was small. Something she might have forgotten, but you didn't. Will that work? No idea. Naomi turned back to her chrysanthemums, giving him permission to leave without awkwardness. But it's more honest than money, and that's a start. Ji-hwan made it to the door before he turned back. Tuesday. Same time. If I come back, will you tell me if she responded? Only if you tell me whether you actually wrote the note. Deal. He pushed through the door into the autumn cold, the bell chiming soft and certain behind him. Naomi stood alone in her shop, surrounded by flowers that would bloom and die on their own predictable schedule, and wondered when she'd started looking forward to Tuesdays. Ji-hwan came back the following Tuesday at exactly 5:30 p.m., and this time he brought a photograph on his phone. His daughter, Min Seo, at 7 years old, gap-toothed and laughing in a pink hanbok at a temple festival. Naomi studied the image while she poured chamomile tea into 2 cups, the cracked one for him, a chipped blue one for herself. Did she respond? Naomi asked, handing him the tea. She texted 3 words. I remember too. Ji-hwan's voice caught on the last word. That's more than I've gotten in 2 years. Then you wrote a good note. Naomi settled onto the stool behind the counter, gesturing for him to take the wooden chair customers used when ordering wedding arrangements. What memory did you choose? The summer she turned 8, she wanted to learn piano. I was against it, said it was impractical, that she should focus on English and math. Jihuan stared into his tea like it held answers. Her mother signed her up anyway. The first recital, I had a merger closing in Singapore. Flew back the morning of, went straight to the auditorium in my suit from the plane. He paused. She played Schumann, made 2 mistakes and cried through the bow. I told her she was brave for finishing. Naomi felt something shift in her chest. That's a good memory. I missed every recital after that. Work was always more important. He set the cup down carefully, as if afraid he might break it. In the note, I told her I still have the program from that first one. I do. It's in my office in Seoul, in a drawer I open sometimes when I can't sleep. Which is every night, Naomi said quietly. Which is every night. They sat in companionable silence, the kind that felt earned rather than awkward, while outside the shop the streetlights flickered on and the October evening settled into something close to peaceful. Naomi realized she'd stopped rushing to close up, stopped mentally cataloging the inventory she needed to order, stopped performing the small rituals of solitude she'd perfected over 5 years. Can I ask you something? Jihuan's voice pulled her back. You're going to whether I say yes or not. He almost smiled. Why flowers, specifically? There are easier businesses. Naomi ran her thumb along the rim of her cup. My grandfather had a greenhouse. Nothing fancy. Attached to his house in Virginia. Glass panels he'd salvaged from a torn-down church. Benches he built from scrap wood. The memory rose up clear and bright. August afternoons when the air hung thick with humidity and jasmine. He taught me that everything grows in its own time. You can't rush a bulb to bloom. You can't force a cutting to root faster. You just create the right conditions and wait. And after your husband died, you needed something you couldn't rush. I needed something I couldn't fail at by not saving it. The truth sat heavy between them. Flowers die on schedule. Even if you do everything right, they still die. There's a weird comfort in that. Jihuan nodded slowly. In my office, I have a ficus tree, Minji. My assistant keeps alive. I forget to water it for weeks. She pretends I'm the one caring for it, writes watering day on my calendar, so I'll think I'm responsible for keeping it alive. He looked up, and his expression was careful, vulnerable. I think I'm afraid that if I stop working, I'll realize I don't know how to keep anything alive. Not trees, not relationships, not myself. So you keep moving. So I keep moving. Naomi set her cup down and moved toward the cooler, pulling out a small potted succulent, a jade plant with thick, waxy leaves that caught the light. This is the most forgiving plant that exists. Water it once every 2 weeks. Put it anywhere with light. It'll survive your traveling schedule and your neglect. She placed it on the counter between them. Take it. Prove to yourself you can keep one thing alive. Jihuan stared at the plant like she'd handed him a test he wasn't sure he could pass. What if I kill it? Then you'll know you tried. Naomi pushed it closer. That's more than most people do. He took the jade plant with both hands, cradling it like something precious and breakable. How much do I owe you? Call it payment for good company. Naomi waved off his reaching for his wallet. But if you kill it, you have to tell me. No pretending it's fine. No pretending, Jihuan agreed. He left at 6:47 p.m., 17 minutes later than he'd planned, and for the first time in 8 years, he didn't feel the usual anxiety about falling behind schedule. Naomi watched him walk past the window, the small green plant visible through his briefcase's open top, and caught herself smiling at nothing in particular. The bell chimed as the door settled shut, and the shop felt simultaneously emptier and fuller than it had in years. It became a routine without either of them naming it. Tuesday at 5:30, then Thursday too. Jihuan would push through the door of Ellison Flowers with some excuse. Needed advice on plants for his hotel lobbies, wanted to understand seasonal arrangements, curious about the difference between garden roses and commercial ones. Naomi would pour tea and correct his pronunciation of botanical names, and they would talk about everything except the obvious thing growing between them like something carefully tended and unnamed. On the third Thursday, Ji-hwan arrived with takeout from the Korean restaurant 2 neighborhoods over. Japchae and kimchi, fried rice in containers that steamed when he opened them on her work counter. "You mentioned you haven't left the shop before 7 p.m. in 6 months," he said, not quite apologetic. "I thought you should eat." Naomi looked at the food, then at him. "This is starting to feel like you're adopting me as a project. This is me realizing I'm hungry, and eating alone in my hotel room feels more depressing than usual." He pulled out 2 sets of chopsticks. "If you'd rather I leave, sit down before the rice gets cold." Naomi grabbed 2 small plates from under the register, the ones she used when Clara brought lunch and refused to take no for an answer. "And teach me how to use these properly. I've been faking it at Asian restaurants for 30 years. Ji-hwan's laugh was surprised and genuine, the kind that sounded like it didn't escape often. He showed her the correct grip, his hands briefly steadying hers to adjust her fingers, and Naomi felt the contact like a spark she wasn't ready to name yet. They ate sitting on stools surrounded by buckets of dahlias and the lingering scent of eucalyptus, and for the first time since Robert died, Naomi let someone else take care of a meal. Min-seo texted again, Ji-hwan said between bites. "Asked if I was coming to Seoul for Chuseok. Are you?" "I should. It's important." He set down his chopsticks. "But I have meetings here that week. Board review. I can't move it." Naomi heard what he didn't say. The same pattern repeating, work trumping family, the cycle he couldn't seem to break even when he desperately wanted to. What would happen if you moved the review? The board would be annoyed. 2 members would probably file complaints. My VP would handle it, but it would create tension. Ji-hwan's voice was measured, executive, the tone of someone listing acceptable casualties. "And if you miss Chuseok?" He was quiet for a long moment. Min-seo would stop texting again, and she'd be right to. "So move the review." Naomi said it simply, like the answer was obvious. "It's not that easy." "It's exactly that easy." She met his eyes, unflinching. "You're the CEO. You're allowed to choose your daughter over a meeting. The company won't collapse, but your relationship with her might." Ji-hwan stared at her, and Naomi could see the war happening behind his expression. Decades of conditioning that said work came first, battling against the desperate wish to be the father he'd failed to be. "You make it sound simple." Because it is. Scary and simple aren't mutually exclusive. Naomi picked up her chopsticks again, giving him space to sit with the truth. "I let my husband die because I didn't want to nag him about doctors. I told myself it was respecting his autonomy. Really, I was just avoiding the discomfort of a fight." She felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the one that came with this particular admission. Simple doesn't mean easy. It just means you know what the right answer is, and you have to decide if you're brave enough to do it. And if I move the review and she still doesn't want to see me, then at least you'll know you tried. That's something you can live with. Naomi's voice gentled. What you can't live with is choosing the same thing you've always chosen and expecting different results. Ji-hwan pulled out his phone, typed something, set it face down on the counter. "I just texted Minji, told her to reschedule the November review, December at the earliest." "Good. I'm terrified." "Also good." Naomi smiled. Fear means it matters. They finished the meal in comfortable silence, and when Ji-hwan left at 7:23 p.m., he paused at the door. "Thank you. For the honesty. Thank you for the food, and for listening. Same time Tuesday? Bring that jade plant. I want to see if you've killed it yet." His smile was small and real, and Naomi watched him disappear into the November dusk, carrying empty takeout containers, and something that might have been hope. Sunday arrived with its usual precision. 2:04 p.m., Renee's silver Honda pulled up to the curb, and Naomi watched through the shop window as her daughter checked her reflection in the rearview mirror before stepping out. Same moss green blazer, same efficient bun, same expression that said, "I'm here because I should be, not because I want to be." "Mom." Renee's hug was brief, professional, the kind you'd give a respected colleague. "Baby girl." Naomi squeezed back, trying not to hold on too long. They settled into their routine, Renee insisting on walking through the shop to check for burned-out lights or uneven floorboards, Naomi pretending she hadn't already done the same inspection that morning. They moved to the small back room where Naomi kept a hot plate and a kettle, and Renee made tea with the practiced movements of someone performing a familiar ritual. "How's work?" Naomi asked, the opening question in their standard script. "Busy. The Hendricks account is expanding into 3 new markets, so I'm traveling more." Renee handed her mother a cup. "How's the shop?" "Steady. Wedding season's slowing down, but holiday arrangements are picking up." They could have been reading from cue cards. "You've been staying later than usual," Renee said, and there was something sharper in her voice now, the prosecutor tone she used when building a case. Mrs. Chen mentioned she saw lights on past 8 p.m. 3 times last week. Naomi should have known the neighborhood network would report back. "I've been reorganizing inventory. Takes longer than expected." Not technically a lie, she had been reorganizing, just not alone. "Mom." Renee set down her cup. "Is something going on?" "Like what?" "Like you're avoiding going home. Like you're working yourself the way Dad did." The words hung between them, sharp and cutting. "I know that pattern. I watched it kill him." There it was, the anger Renee had been carrying for 5 years, carefully wrapped and contained but never resolved. Naomi felt her own defenses rise, the familiar argument about to replay itself. "Your father made his own choices. I couldn't force him to slow down. He was a grown man." But instead, she heard herself say, "I'm not working myself to death. I've been having tea with someone." Renee blinked. "Tea. With someone. A friend. He stops by Tuesdays and Thursdays." The truth felt both enormous and impossibly small. He. Renee's expression cycled through surprise, suspicion, and something that might have been concern. "Mom, who is this person?" "His name is Ji-hwan. He's Korean. 55, CEO of a hotel group. Came in a few weeks ago needing flowers for an apology." Naomi kept her voice even, conversational. "We talk. That's all. That's all." Renee's skepticism was palpable. A 55-year-old CEO is stopping by a flower shop twice a week for conversation. "Yes. Mom." Renee leaned forward. "What does he want?" "Company. Same as me." Naomi met her daughter's eyes. "Is that so hard to believe?" "It's hard to believe it's just company." Renee's voice gentled slightly. "You haven't had someone in your life since Dad. This person shows up out of nowhere, and suddenly you're staying late and having tea twice a week." She shook her head. "I just don't want you to get hurt. And I don't want you spending the rest of your life checking on me like I'm a project that needs managing." The words came out sharper than Naomi intended. "Renee, I know you feel responsible because you weren't here when your father died. Don't." Renee's jaw tightened. "But that wasn't your fault, and spending every Sunday performing obligation isn't going to change what happened." And Naomi pushed forward, the thing they'd never said out loud finally demanding air. "I miss my daughter, the one who used to come over and tell me about her terrible dates and her office drama and what she was reading. I miss laughing with you. When did we stop doing that?" Renee's expression cracked, just slightly. "When I realized I should have been here. That if I'd been paying attention, I could have made Dad see a doctor. I could have..." "You couldn't have done anything." Naomi's voice was firm. "Your father was stubborn and scared and convinced he was invincible. That's not on you." She reached across the small table, covered Renee's hand with her own. "But you've been punishing yourself for 5 years, and I've let you because I felt guilty too. We have to stop." Renee's eyes were wet. "I don't know how to be around you without feeling like I need to fix something." "Then stop trying to fix me and just be here." Naomi squeezed her hand. "And maybe trust that if I'm having tea with someone, it's because I want to, not because I'm being naive." "Is he..." Renee hesitated. "Is he good to you?" "He brings me dinner and asks how I'm doing, and actually listens to the answer." Naomi smiled, small and honest. "And he's trying to repair his relationship with his daughter, so we're both working through the same guilt. So it's therapy disguised as tea." "Maybe. Does it matter?" Renee was quiet for a long moment, then shook her head slowly. Just be careful, okay? I can't lose you too. You're not going to lose me. I promise. Naomi stood, pulled her daughter into a real hug, the kind that lasted and meant something. And next Sunday, come earlier. We'll actually cook something instead of drinking tea and pretending we're fine. Okay. Renee's voice was muffled against her mother's shoulder. But I reserve the right to interrogate this Jihuan person if it becomes more than tea. Noted. Naomi kissed the top of her daughter's head, and for the first time in 5 years, Sunday felt like it might become something other than penance. When Renee left at 4:12 p.m., she hugged her mother goodbye at the door instead of from the car, and Naomi stood watching the Honda disappear around the corner, feeling like they'd finally started a conversation that should have happened years ago. The following Tuesday, Jihuan arrived at 5:30 p.m. carrying a cloth-wrapped bundle that he set on the counter with visible apprehension. I tried something, he said before Naomi could ask. She unwrapped the fabric to find a traditional Korean lunchbox, dosarak, with compartments filled with what appeared to be homemade kimbap, slightly uneven, bulgogi, a bit too dark around the edges, and rice, perfectly cooked surprisingly. The smell was promising, even if the presentation suggested a learning curve. You made this. Naomi looked up, something warm unfurling in her chest. I burned 3 attempts. Jihuan's ears were slightly pink. Minji had to give me her mother's recipe after I called her at midnight because the first batch caught fire. He pulled out chopsticks, then a fork. I wasn't sure if you'd mastered chopsticks yet. I'm getting there. Naomi accepted the chopsticks, touched by the effort more than the execution. When was the last time you cooked? 1997. It did not go well. They sat on the floor behind the counter, the space somehow feeling more intimate than the stools, more honest. Naomi tried the kimbap first. The rice was sticky, the vegetables crisp, the balance surprisingly good despite the irregular shape. This is delicious. Don't lie to make me feel better. But Jihuan was smiling. I'm not. Naomi tried the bulgogi, and yes, it was a little charred, but the marinade was perfect, sweet and savory and complex. You did this after a full workday. I did this instead of a video call I didn't want to take. Jihuan ate with her, their shoulders almost touching in the small space. Told the board I had a conflict. They were deeply concerned. You're really doing it, choosing differently. Terrifying every single time. He met her eyes. But less terrifying than realizing I'd spent 55 years performing a life instead of living one. Naomi set down her chopsticks, the weight of what he'd just said settling between them like something precious. I spent the last 5 years performing grief, going through motions, keeping the shop running, being fine when anyone asked. She gestured around them. This shop was my excuse not to have a life. I convinced myself that maintaining it was enough. And now? Now I'm sitting on the floor eating burned bulgogi with someone who understands that starting over is terrifying. She smiled, and it reached her eyes. It's the most alive I've felt in years. Jihuan's expression shifted into something vulnerable and open. I went to Seoul for Chuseok. Minseo and I had dinner, just the two of us, no phones, no work talk. His voice caught. She told me about her girlfriend. Someone she's been with for 2 years that she didn't think I'd care enough to know about. And you proved her wrong. I tried to, asked questions, listened. Apologized for making her feel like she couldn't tell me. He looked down at the lunchbox. She's coming to visit next month. Wants to meet people who are important to me. Naomi's heart did something complicated. Is that what I am? Important? Yes. Jihuan said it simply, without hedging. You're the person who made me realize I could choose differently. That makes you very important. They sat in the flower shop as evening turned to full dark outside, eating imperfect food in a space that smelled like eucalyptus and potential, and Naomi felt something shift inside her. The careful walls she'd built brick by brick over 5 years starting to develop cracks that let light through. Next Tuesday, she said, I'll cook. Fair warning, my collard greens will make you reconsider every meal you've ever had. I'm counting on it. Jihuan's smile was genuine and reached the tired lines around his eyes. When he left at 7:51 p.m., Naomi wrapped the empty lunchbox in its cloth and set it carefully on the shelf beside the register, next to the photo of Renee and the cracked ceramic mug she'd started thinking of as his. The shop felt less like a refuge and more like a beginning. Naomi found him on a Wednesday afternoon in late November, collapsed among the raised beds of the community garden 3 blocks from her shop. Mr. Whitaker, 72, retired postal worker, the man who'd taught her the difference between pruning for health and pruning for shape, was conscious but disoriented, his dark skin ashen in a way that made Naomi's hands shake as she called 911. She rode in the ambulance holding his hand, his voice thin and reedy. "Don't call my son yet. He worries too much. Mr. Whitaker, you just collapsed in a garden. He should worry. Promise me, not yet." His grip was surprisingly strong. Naomi promised, and then spent 3 hours in St. Mary's emergency room waiting area, texting Renee that she'd be late closing the shop and trying not to imagine the worst. At 6:17 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from Ji Hwan. "Tuesday moved to today?" She stared at the message, at the presumption that she'd be at the shop at their usual time, and something in her chest loosened. She called instead of texting. "Naomi." His voice was concerned before she'd said a word. "I'm at St. Mary's. Mr. Whitaker. He's a friend. He collapsed. I don't know what's happening yet." The words came out rushed, anxious. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. You don't have to. I'm already getting my coat." The line clicked off. Ji Hwan arrived in 18 minutes, still wearing his suit from whatever meeting he'd left, his expression calm and solid in a way that made Naomi realize how much she'd been holding herself together by force of will alone. He didn't ask unnecessary questions, just sat beside her in the uncomfortable plastic chairs and said, "Tell me about him." So she did. Mr. Whitaker, who'd lived 2 streets over from her grandfather, who'd come to Robert's funeral and stood in the back and left a casserole on her doorstep every Sunday for 6 months after. Mr. Whitaker, who checked on her shop when she had the flu, who taught her that sometimes the best comfort was silence and proximity, not advice. "He sounds like the father you needed after your grandfather died," Ji Hwan said quietly. "He is." Naomi's voice broke slightly. At 8:43 p.m., a doctor emerged, young, tired, kind, and delivered news that landed like stones. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, metastasized. Mr. Whitaker had known for 4 months and told no one, refused treatment, decided to live what time he had left on his own terms in his garden. "How long?" Naomi asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. "Weeks. Maybe 2 months with aggressive intervention, but he's declined." The doctor's expression was sympathetic. "He's stable now. You can see him." Naomi stood, and Ji Hwan stood with her. "You don't have to come in," she said. "I know." He took her hand, a simple gesture that steadied her more than words could. Mr. Whitaker was awake, his hospital gown making him look smaller than he was, but his eyes were clear and sharp. "You called the boy," he said, looking at Ji Hwan with assessment. "She did." Ji Hwan stepped forward, respectful. "Seo Ji Hwan. I'm a friend. The Tuesday-Thursday friend." Mr. Whitaker's smile was faint. "She mentioned you, said you don't know the difference between a lily and a tulip." "I'm learning." Ji Hwan glanced at Naomi. "Good. She needs someone who's willing to learn." Mr. Whitaker shifted in the bed, waving away Naomi's attempt to adjust his pillows. "I'm dying, child. Let's not dance around it. You're going into treatment," Naomi started. "No, I'm not. I'm going home tomorrow, and I'm going to finish my garden. And you're going to stop looking at me like I'm already gone." His voice was firm despite its weakness. "I made my choice, same as you get to make yours." Naomi felt tears she'd been holding back finally slip free. "I can't lose you too. You're not losing me. I'm just finishing my season." Mr. Whitaker reached out, took her hand in his weathered one. "And you're finally starting yours. Don't you dare stop, because I'm ending mine." Ji Hwan, who'd been standing quietly near the door, moved closer. "Sir, is there anything we can do? Anything you need?" Mr. Whitaker studied him with the careful assessment of a man who'd lived long enough to read people accurately. Take care of her. Not like she's fragile. She's not. But like she matters. He looked at Naomi. And you let him. Stop acting like needing people is weakness. They stayed until visiting hours ended at 10 p.m., and Mr. Whitaker shooed them out with instructions to water his tomatoes and stop looking so tragic. In the hospital parking lot, under the harsh fluorescent lights, Naomi finally let herself break down. Not dramatically, just the quiet, exhausted crying of someone who'd held too much for too long. Ji-hwan held her, his arms steady and sure, and didn't offer platitudes or try to fix anything. He just stayed, solid and present, until she could breathe again. "Thank you for coming," Naomi said finally, her voice rough. "Thank you for calling." Ji-hwan pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "I meant what I said before. You're important to me. That means I show up." Naomi nodded, too wrung out for more words, and let him drive her back to the shop in his rental car, a sleek black sedan that smelled like leather and his particular mix of cologne and determination. He walked her to her door, waited while she locked up, and didn't ask to come in. "Tuesday?" he asked. "Tuesday," she confirmed. She watched his taillights disappear into the November night and realized that for the first time in 5 years, grief felt like something she didn't have to carry alone. Ji-hwan came to the shop on Friday, not their usual day, carrying a folder that he set on the counter with visible hesitation. Naomi was elbow-deep in poinsettias, the early holiday rush beginning, but she stopped when she saw his expression. "What is this?" she asked. "A proposal. A business proposal." He opened the folder to reveal printed spreadsheets, logistics analyses, market projections, the language of his world translated for hers. "Your delivery system is inefficient. You're losing money on orders under $30, and your supplier contracts are outdated. I had Minji run the numbers." Naomi felt something cold settle in her stomach. "You had your assistant analyze my business. I wanted to help. If you optimize routes and renegotiate with your wholesalers, you could increase profit margins by 23%. Ji-hwan was in CEO mode now, confident and competent, solving problems. "I've drafted new supplier agreements. You just need to sign." "No." Naomi closed the folder. "Naomi, this could transform." "I said no." She stepped back from the counter, arms crossed. "I didn't ask you to fix my business. I didn't ask you to run analyses or draft contracts or decide what I need." Ji-hwan blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. "I thought you'd be pleased. You mentioned delivery costs. I mentioned it in passing as conversation, not as a request for corporate intervention." Naomi's voice was controlled but firm. "This shop is mine. It works the way it works because that's how I built it. It's not broken just because it's not optimized. But you could be doing so much better." "By whose measure?" Naomi cut him off. "Ji-hwan, I'm not one of your hotels. I'm not a project that needs restructuring. And I'm sure as hell not a charity case for you to feel good about saving." The words landed hard, and she saw him flinch. "That's not what this is, isn't it? Successful CEO swoops in and fixes the struggling small business owner." Naomi's hands were shaking slightly. "I've been running this shop for 30 years. It kept me afloat through my husband's death and my daughter's distance and every crisis in between. It's not efficient, but it's mine. And you don't get to decide it needs fixing." Ji-hwan looked stricken, the competent executive facade cracking. "I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. You were fixing. That's different." Naomi softened slightly, seeing the genuine confusion in his expression. "I know you mean well, but I need you to understand something. I don't need saving. I need a partner who respects that I know what I'm doing, even if I'm doing it differently than you would." "A partner?" Ji-hwan's voice was quiet. "Is that what this is becoming? Because if it is, we need to be clear about what that means." Naomi met his eyes. "I won't be managed or optimized or improved. I'm 53 years old. I know who I am and what I want. If you can't accept that, Then maybe we should stop before this becomes something we can't come back from. Ji-hwan was silent for a long moment, and Naomi could see him processing, recalibrating, trying to understand how he'd gotten it so wrong. Finally, he nodded slowly. "You're right. I overstepped." "You did. I'm used to fixing problems. It's what I do." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "But you're not a problem. You're..." He trailed off, searching for words. "I'm what?" "You're the person who makes me want to be different. Not better. Different. Less about control, and more about presence." Ji-hwan's voice was raw. "And I'm clearly still learning how to do that without falling back into old patterns." Naomi felt her anger drain away, replaced by something softer. "Then learn. But learn by asking what I need, not by deciding for me." "What do you need?" he asked. "I need you to sit with me and drink tea and tell me about your day. I need you to bring burned lunchboxes and let me teach you about flowers without trying to systematize the process." She stepped closer. "I need you to be Ji-hwan, not a CEO with solutions. Can you do that?" "I can try." "Then try." Naomi gestured to the folder. "Take that analysis and shred it. If I ever want business advice, I'll ask." Ji-hwan picked up the folder and, without ceremony, tore the papers in half. The sound was sharp and final. "Noted." They stood in the shop, surrounded by poinsettias and the particular tension of having had their first real fight. And Naomi realized something important. They'd both stayed. Neither had walked away. Neither had made it easy. But they'd both chosen to work through it. "Tuesday," Ji-hwan said. "I'll be here. With tea and no solutions." "Good." Naomi allowed herself a small smile. "And Ji-hwan, thank you for listening. Thank you for telling me when I'm being an idiot. Anytime." When he left, Naomi returned to her poinsettias feeling shaken but stronger, like they'd cleared some crucial hurdle she hadn't known was there. Partnerships, she thought, weren't about perfection. They were about learning how to fight fair and stay anyway. December arrived with brutal efficiency, and with it came a crisis that Ji-hwan had been watching approach for weeks, like a slow-motion avalanche. He told Naomi about it on a Tuesday evening, his tea untouched, his usually composed demeanor fractured in a way she'd never seen. "The board called an emergency meeting. They want me in Seoul by Friday." His voice was flat, executive, the tone of someone delivering bad news he'd already processed 12 times. 3 shareholders filed formal complaints about my absence. They're questioning my commitment to the company. Naomi set down the chrysanthemum she'd been trimming. "How serious is this?" "Serious enough that they're discussing a vote of no confidence. If I don't return full-time, relocate back to Seoul, resume the schedule I had before, they'll remove me as CEO." Ji-hwan finally looked at her, and his eyes held exhaustion deeper than sleeplessness. "I have 72 hours to decide." The shop felt too quiet, the weight of what he wasn't saying pressing down like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Naomi moved around the counter, sat beside him on the worn wooden bench customers rarely used. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." The admission seemed to cost him. 6 months ago, this wouldn't have been a question. The company was everything. I would have been on the next flight, no hesitation. And now? Now I have a daughter who texts me good morning. I have a jade plant that's actually growing. I have... He gestured helplessly between them. "I have this, whatever this is. And I don't want to lose it." Naomi felt something crack open in her chest, painful and necessary. "But you also don't want to lose the company you built for 30 years. "No." Ji-hwan's honesty was brutal and real. "I don't, and I don't know how to keep both." They sat in silence, and Naomi understood that this was the moment, the pivot point where easy words like, "follow your heart," or "choose what makes you happy," revealed themselves as the shallow platitudes they were. This wasn't a romance novel. This was 2 people in their 50s with histories and obligations and consequences that couldn't be wished away. "I won't ask you to stay," Naomi said finally. "That's not fair. This company is your life's work." Walking away from that to stay here with me, with someone you've known for 3 months. That's not a decision I want you to make, and then resent me for later. Ji-hwan turned to her, something like surprise crossing his features. You're telling me to go. I'm telling you that I understand if you need to go. Naomi's voice was steady despite the fracture spreading through her. And that whatever you decide, I won't be the thing you gave everything up for. That's too much weight for anyone to carry. What if I want you to ask me to stay? His question was raw, vulnerable in a way that made him look younger and more lost than she'd ever seen him. Then you're asking me to make the decision for you. And that's not fair either. Naomi took his hand, laced her fingers through his. Ji-hwan, you spent 3 decades building something remarkable. You employ thousands of people. Your company matters. And if you walk away from it without exploring every possible compromise, you'll wake up one day and resent the choice. And probably resent me for being the reason. I wouldn't. You would. Maybe not now. Maybe not in a year. But eventually. She squeezed his hand. I loved my husband, but I watched him sacrifice everything for work until it killed him. I won't be the thing you sacrifice work for. That's just the same tragedy with different costumes. Ji-hwan closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were wet. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe you can't fix it. Maybe you can only decide what you're willing to live with. Naomi's throat was tight, but she pushed through. Go to Seoul. Have the meeting. See if there's a middle path they'll accept. And if there isn't, then you make the choice that lets you sleep at night. She pulled her hand back, giving him space. But make it for yourself, not for me. Because I can't be the reason you upend your life. That's not love. That's rescue. And we're both too old for that. Ji-hwan stood, paced to the window, his reflection ghost-like in the darkened glass. What if I choose wrong? Then you'll know you chose, instead of letting circumstances decide for you. That's something. He turned back to her, and his expression held grief and gratitude tangled together. I need to leave Thursday morning. The meeting's Friday at 9 a.m. Seoul time. Can I see you Wednesday? Of course. Even if I don't have answers yet? Especially then. When he left that night at 8:34 p.m., Naomi stood alone in her shop and let herself cry. Not dramatically, just the quiet, exhausted tears of someone who'd done the right thing and hated every second of it. She could have asked him to stay. Could have made it about them, instead of about what was honest and sustainable. But she'd spent 5 years learning that love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about making space for the other person to be fully themselves, even when that meant risking everything. Wednesday came too fast and too slow simultaneously. Naomi opened the shop at her usual 6 a.m., spent 3 hours assembling a wedding order for Saturday, and by 11:30 felt the familiar tightness in her chest that she'd been ignoring for 6 months. Not now, she thought, gripping the counter. Not today. But bodies don't negotiate. And by noon, the tightness had spread to her left arm, her vision spotting at the edges. She made it to the back room before her legs gave out, collapsing onto the small sofa where she sometimes napped during slow afternoons. The logical part of her brain whispered, "Call someone." The stubborn part that had survived widowhood and built a business from nothing whispered, "You're fine. Just breathe. It'll pass." It didn't pass. At 12:47 p.m., Clara, her sister, perpetually dramatic and occasionally right, pushed through the shop door calling, "I brought lunch from that place you like," and found Naomi on the sofa, conscious but gray-pale and shaking. Jesus, Naomi. Clara dropped the takeout bags, had her phone out before Naomi could protest. "Don't you dare tell me you're fine. I'm calling 911. Don't." Naomi tried to sit up, failed. Shut up and let someone help you for once in your stubborn life. Clara's voice was sharp with fear as she rattled off the address to the dispatcher. The ambulance arrived in 8 minutes. The EMTs were efficient and kind, asking questions Naomi answered through gritted teeth while they checked her blood pressure, 178/104, and loaded her onto a gurney she absolutely didn't need, thank you very much. Clara rode with her, holding her hand and texting Renee with the other. and Naomi felt the particular shame of being the person who needed rescuing, instead of the person who had everything under control. At St. Mary's, the same hospital where she'd sat with Mr. Whitaker 4 weeks ago, they ran tests and asked more questions, and eventually a doctor who looked about Renee's age delivered the diagnosis Naomi had been avoiding for months. Stage 2 hypertension, stress-induced, untreated, and dangerous. "You're lucky," the doctor said, with the particular firmness of someone who'd seen too many patients ignore warning signs. "Another few hours without treatment, and we'd be discussing stroke risk." "I've been busy," Naomi said weakly. "Busy is fine. Dead is not." The doctor prescribed medication, ordered follow-ups, and looked at her with an expression that said, "I know you're going to ignore half of this, but I have to try." Renee arrived at 3:15 p.m., still in her work blazer, her face holding the particular terror of a child realizing parents are mortal. "Mom, what happened?" "I'm fine." "Don't." Renee's voice cracked. "Don't tell me you're fine. Aunt Clara said you collapsed. In your shop, alone." What if she hadn't come by? Naomi didn't have a good answer for that. Clara, standing by the window, arms crossed, added, "She's been having panic attacks for 2 years, blood pressure through the roof, working 70-hour weeks and pretending she's invincible." She looked at Naomi with love and fury tangled together. "You survived Robert dying. You don't get to kill yourself the same way." The truth of it landed like a punch. "I didn't want to worry anyone," Naomi said, which sounded exactly as pathetic out loud as it felt in her head. "So you'd rather end up dead?" Renee pulled the chair beside the hospital bed closer, sat down hard. "Mom, I can't lose you. I already lost Dad because neither of you would admit when something was wrong. I'm not doing this again." Naomi felt tears she'd been holding back for years finally break free. "I didn't know how to ask for help. So you just didn't?" Clara's voice gentled slightly. "Naomi, you've spent 5 years being the strong one. It's okay to be the one who needs help for once. I don't know how to be that person." The admission felt like peeling back skin. "Then learn." Renee took her hand. "The same way you're learning to let Ji-hwan in. The same way you're learning that starting over at 53 isn't failure." At the sound of his name, Naomi's heart did something complicated. "I haven't called him." "He's flying to Seoul tomorrow," Renee said quietly. "I know. You told me last Sunday. I can't. He has enough to worry about." "Mom." Renee's voice was firm. "If you care about him, let him decide what he wants to worry about. Stop deciding for him." Naomi stared at her daughter, seeing not the guilty, overprotective young woman who'd been visiting out of obligation, but the grown adult who'd somehow figured out what her mother was still learning. That love meant letting people choose to stay, not protecting them from the mess. "Okay," Naomi whispered. Clara pulled out Naomi's phone from her purse, unlocked it. She knew the code, of course she did, and handed it over. "Call him." Naomi looked at the screen, at Ji-hwan's number saved simply as Tuesday, Thursday. She pressed call before she could talk herself out of it. He answered on the second ring, his voice holding the focused tension of someone preparing for battle. "Naomi, I was just thinking about you. I'm at St. Mary's," she said, and heard him go silent on the other end. "What happened?" No preamble, just immediate concern. "Hypertension. I collapsed at the shop. I'm okay now. They're keeping me overnight for observation. I'm 20 minutes away. Ji-hwan, you have a flight tomorrow. I'll catch a later one, or I won't. Right now I'm coming to you." The line went dead. Naomi looked at Clara and Renee, both watching her with expressions that said, "See? Let people love you." "He's coming," Naomi said unnecessarily. "Good," Renee said, squeezing her hand. "It's about time you let someone show up for you." Ji-hwan arrived at St. Mary's at 4:02 p.m., still wearing the suit from whatever pre-flight preparations he'd abandoned. His usually composed expression fractured into something raw and unguarded. He stopped in the doorway of Naomi's room, taking in the IV line, the monitors, the hospital gown, and something in his face shifted from concern to resolve. "You collapsed," he said, not quite a question. "I'm fine." "Stop saying that." He moved into the room, nodding politely to Clara and Renee before sitting in the chair Renee vacated. "You're in a hospital bed. You're not fine." Naomi felt the defensive walls she'd been building start to crack. "It's just stress, high blood pressure. They're giving me medication." "How long have you been having symptoms?" Jihuan's voice was gentle but immovable. "Few months." "How many is a few?" Naomi looked away. 2 years. Maybe. She heard him take a sharp breath. 2 years. You've been having panic attacks and high blood pressure for 2 years, and you didn't tell anyone. I was managing. You collapsed in your shop. That's not managing. Jihuan took her hand, his grip firm and warm. Naomi, I know you're used to carrying everything alone, but you can't do this anymore. You told me choosing differently was terrifying. You were right. So now you have to make a different choice too. Clara, still standing by the window, said quietly, I like him. He can stay. Renee nodded agreement. I'll get coffee. Give you two some privacy. She and Clara left with the particular efficiency of family members who knew when to make themselves scarce. Alone with Jihuan, Naomi felt the careful control she'd maintained for 5 years finally shatter. I'm scared, she admitted, the words raw and true. I watched my husband work himself to death because neither of us would admit when things were too much. And I've been doing the same thing, just slower. I know. Jihuan moved from the chair to the edge of her hospital bed, still holding her hand. I do the same thing. We're both so terrified of needing help that we'd rather break ourselves than ask for it. How do we stop? We start by being honest. About everything. He took a breath, and Naomi saw him make a decision in real time. I'm not going to Seoul tomorrow. Jihuan. I'm not going, he repeated firmly. I'll call Minji, have her reschedule. The board meeting can wait 3 days. You can't. They'll remove you. Maybe. Probably. He smiled, tired and real. But here's what I realized sitting in that emergency room waiting area. If I fly to Seoul tomorrow and leave you here, I'm making the same choice I made with Minseo 20 years ago. Work over people. Obligation over presence. He squeezed her hand. I'm done making that choice. Naomi felt something enormous shift in her chest. What if they actually remove you? What if you lose everything you built? Then I'll build something else. Something smaller. Something that lets me be here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Jihuan's expression was clear, certain. The company was my whole life for 30 years, and it made me miserable. I don't want to be that person anymore. You're sure? I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure. They sat in the hospital room as afternoon turned to evening, Jihuan refusing to leave even when the nurses suggested he should, until eventually they gave up and brought him a pillow and a blanket so he could sleep in the uncomfortable recliner beside her bed. At 3:17 a.m., Naomi woke to find him awake, watching her with an expression so tender it made her throat tight. Can't sleep, she whispered. I slept. His voice held wonder. 4 hours. I haven't slept 4 consecutive hours in 8 years. The chair can't be comfortable. It's not, but you're here, and for some reason that lets me rest. He reached across the space between bed and chair, found her hand in the darkness. I think I've been waiting for permission to stop moving. You gave me that. Naomi felt tears slip free, quiet and grateful. You gave me permission to need help. Then we're even. They stayed like that, hands linked across the space between bed and chair, until dawn light started filtering through the hospital blinds, and nurses began their morning rounds. And for the first time in years, neither of them felt alone. Naomi came home from the hospital Friday afternoon with strict doctor's orders. Rest, medication, reduced hours, actual weekends off for the first time in 30 years. Renee and Clara had tag-teamed cleaning her apartment above the shop, stocking the fridge, and creating what Clara called a recovery station on the couch. Pillows, blankets, a stack of books Naomi never had time to read, and a handwritten schedule detailing who would check on her when. Jihuan had postponed his flight to Monday, citing family emergency in the email Minji sent to the board on his behalf. Naomi tried not to think about what consequences that delay would cost him. Sunday afternoon, Renee arrived not at her usual 2 p.m., but at noon, carrying containers of soup and the particular expression that meant she had questions she'd been holding back. They settled on the couch, Naomi under a blanket despite not being cold, Renee perched on the edge like she might need to spring into action at any moment. "So," Renee said, not meeting her mother's eyes. Ji-hwan, Naomi confirmed. "He stayed at the hospital all night." Renee finally looked up. Aunt Clara said he refused to leave even when they tried to kick him out. He did, and he postponed his flight, the important one, the one that might cost him his job. Renee's voice was careful, probing. "For you." He said it was the right choice. Renee was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her soup bowl. "Mom, is he going to stay? Not just for this week. I mean, really stay. Because if he's just passing through, if this is temporary..." She trailed off, but her meaning was clear. "I can't watch you get hurt." Naomi considered the question with the weight it deserved. "I don't know. He has a life and soul, a daughter, a company, obligations that don't just disappear because he met someone. And I have a life here. The shop, you, Mr. Whitaker, while he's still with us. I'm not leaving." "So what? You're just going to long distance this until it falls apart?" Renee's frustration was palpable. "Maybe. Or maybe we'll figure out something that works for both of us." Naomi set down her own soup, reaching for her daughter's hand. "Renee, I know you're trying to protect me, but I need you to understand something. I'm choosing this with my eyes open. I know the risks. I know he might leave. I know this might not work. Then why? Because even if it doesn't work, even if he goes back to Seoul and we can't make the distance manageable, I'll have had these few months of feeling alive again." Naomi's voice was firm, certain. "I spent 5 years existing instead of living. Ji-hwan reminded me there's a difference. That's worth the risk of heartbreak." Renee's eyes were wet. "I just don't want to watch you go through loss again." "I know. But baby, that's part of loving anyone. You risk losing them." Naomi squeezed her hand. "You're risking it by loving me. I'm risking it by loving you. We can't protect ourselves from grief without also protecting ourselves from joy. And I'm tired of protecting myself." "When did you get so brave?" Renee asked, voice thick. "When I realized I didn't have forever to figure it out." They sat together on the couch, and for the first time, Renee let her head rest on her mother's shoulder, the way she used to when she was small, and the world was less complicated. "He really loves you," she said quietly. "I can tell. The way he looks at you. It's like you're the only person in the room." "I know." Naomi stroked her daughter's hair. "And I love him too. Which is terrifying and wonderful and probably going to hurt like hell at some point. But you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway." Later, after Renee left at 5 p.m. with promises to check in daily, Naomi's phone buzzed with a text from Ji-hwan. "Flight confirmed for Monday 6 a.m. Board meeting Tuesday. I'm scared." She typed back, "Good. Fear means it matters. Call me after?" His response came immediately. "Always." Naomi held her phone against her chest and let herself feel the full spectrum of it. The fear, the hope, the impossible possibility that maybe at 53, she got a second chance at building something real. Not a fairy tale, just two people choosing each other despite the complications. Ji-hwan's flight left at 6:14 a.m. Monday, and by Tuesday afternoon, Seoul time, Tuesday midnight Naomi's time, he called with news that landed like stones in water. Naomi was still awake, couldn't sleep, had been staring at her phone for 3 hours, willing it to ring. "They gave me an ultimatum." His voice was hollow, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with jet lag. Full relocation back to Seoul, minimum 18 months on site. Or they promote the VP, and I transition to advisory board only. Naomi's heart sank. Advisory board means they're pushing me out without actually firing me, face saving for everyone involved. The bitterness in his voice was sharp and real. 18 months in Seoul. No exceptions, no hybrid arrangements. They want me in the office 6 days a week proving my commitment. What did you say? I asked for 3 days to decide. A pause, heavy with things unsaid. Minji thinks I should take the advisory position. She says I've earned the right to step back, that the company will be fine without me. What do you think? Naomi kept her voice neutral, careful. I think I spent 30 years building something that's now being used as leverage to control my life. Ji-hwan's laugh was sharp and humorless. And I think I'm tired of being controlled. They were quiet for a moment, the 14-hour time difference between them feeling insurmountable. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, more vulnerable. What do you want me to do? That's not fair. Naomi sat up on the couch, phone pressed tight to her ear. I can't make this decision for you, Ji-hwan. This is your career, your life's work. And you're my life now too. You get a vote. No. The word came out firmer than she intended. I get input. I get to tell you how I feel. But I don't get to decide whether you walk away from 30 years of work. That has to be your choice, made for your reasons, or you'll resent me for it eventually. I wouldn't. You would. Maybe not today, maybe not next year. But when things get hard, and they will, you'll remember that you gave up your company for me, and you'll wonder if it was worth it. Naomi's throat was tight. I can't be the reason you abandon your life. That's not love. That's rescue. And we're both too old for that. Ji-hwan was silent for so long she thought the call might have dropped. Finally, what if there's no middle path? What if it's Seoul for 18 months or losing you? Then we figure out if we can survive 18 months long distance. The words hurt to say. Or we admit that geography wins and we tried. I don't want to lose this. His voice cracked slightly. I don't either. But I won't ask you to sacrifice everything to keep it. Naomi wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. Make the choice that lets you live with yourself. I'll still be here either way. Even if I choose Seoul, even then, we'll figure out visits, video calls, whatever works. She tried to sound confident, like 18 months apart at their age wasn't terrifying. Long distance isn't ideal, but it's not impossible either. Naomi, go to sleep. Think about it. Call me when you decide. She kept her voice steady. Whatever you choose, I'm not going anywhere. When the call ended at 12:47 a.m., Naomi sat in the dark of her apartment and let herself feel the full weight of what she'd just done, given him permission to leave, refused to be the reason he stayed. It was the most loving and most terrifying thing she'd ever done. Her phone buzzed with a text from Clara, who apparently kept vampire hours. You did the right thing. Love means letting them choose. Naomi typed back, It hurts like hell. Clara's response, Usually does. That's how you know it's real. Wednesday morning, Naomi was arranging a sympathy bouquet when Renee burst through the shop door, holding her phone like a weapon, her expression caught between fury and concern. Mom, have you seen the news? What news? Naomi set down the white lilies carefully. Renee turned her phone around, showing a local business article with the headline, Seoul Hotel Group finalizes purchase of historic riverside property. Exclusive contracts threaten local vendors. Naomi's stomach dropped as she read the article. Ji-hwan's company, CO International Hotels, had closed the deal on the boutique property that had been in negotiation for months, the one she vaguely remembered him mentioning in passing weeks ago. The contract included exclusivity clauses with international suppliers for all hotel services, including floral arrangements. Ellison Flowers, which had serviced the property under previous ownership for 12 years, was being terminated effective immediately. He knew. Renee's voice was hard. He had to have known this was happening. The article says the deal closed yesterday, and he's been in Seoul for 2 days. You don't think this came up in his board meeting? Renee's anger was protective, fierce. Mom, this contract is going to hurt your business. You lose the hotel account. You lose 15% of your annual revenue. Naomi's hands were shaking slightly as she reread the article. The contract had been negotiated by the VP of Acquisitions, not Ji-hwan directly, but as CEO, he would have had final approval, would have known the local impact, would have known it would affect her shop specifically. Maybe he didn't know the details. Naomi started, but even to her own ears it sounded weak. Or maybe this is who he is when you're not in the room. Renee set her phone down with controlled force. The CEO who makes decisions based on profit margins, not people. Mom, I'm not saying he's a bad person, but you need to face the possibility that his work self and his Tuesday-Thursday self are two different men. Naomi felt something crack inside her chest. I need to call him. Do you? Or do you need to decide if this is the kind of person you want in your life? Renee's expression was gentle but firm. Someone who talks about choosing differently, but then makes choices that hurt you when it's convenient for business? The bell above the door chimed, and Mr. Whitaker shuffled in, moving slower than last month, but still refusing the cane Clara had bought him. He took one look at both their faces and said, "What happened?" Renee explained in clipped, angry sentences, while Naomi stood frozen, the betrayal settling into her bones like cold. When Renee finished, Mr. Whitaker was quiet for a long moment, then turned to Naomi. "You gonna call him?" he asked simply. "I don't know what to say." "Start with the truth. You're hurt. You feel blindsided. You need to know if he knew and didn't tell you." Mr. Whitaker settled onto the customer chair with the carefulness of someone whose body hurt more than he'd admit. "And then you listen. Really listen. Not to what you want to hear, but to what he actually says. What if he knew and didn't tell me?" Naomi's voice was small. "Then you decide if that's something you can forgive." Mr. Whitaker's expression was kind but unflinching. "But you can't make that decision without the conversation." Naomi picked up her phone with hands that felt disconnected from her body and called Ji-hwan. It was 2:47 a.m. Thursday morning in Seoul. He answered on the third ring, voice thick with interrupted sleep. "Naomi, what's wrong?" Immediate concern, alert despite the hour. "Did you know about the Riverside Hotel contract?" She kept her voice level. Silence. Then, "What?" "The exclusivity clause, the one that terminates my shop's contract with the property." Her hands were shaking. "Did you know?" Wait, what contract?" "The acquisition finalized, but I haven't seen the vendor agreements yet." She heard rustling, him getting out of bed, the sound of a laptop opening. "Give me the clause number." Section 7, subsection C, exclusive international floral supplier, termination of all existing local contracts effective immediately. More silence, longer this time. Then Ji-hwan's voice, tight with something that sounded like horror. "I didn't approve this. The VP was supposed to maintain local vendor relationships. It was explicit in my notes. But you're the CEO. You sign off on acquisitions." Naomi felt tears starting, furious at herself for crying. "I sign off on the acquisition terms, but operational contracts go through the department heads. This should never have..." He cut himself off. "Naomi, I'm looking at the document now. This was finalized while I was in your hospital room. I didn't see it. I didn't approve the vendor clause. But it's your company, your name on the deal. I know, and that makes it my responsibility even if I didn't know the details." Ji-hwan's voice was raw. "God, Naomi, I'm so sorry. I'll fix this. I'll call the VP right now. We'll rewrite the clause." "Can you?" Renee's voice cut in. Naomi had put the call on speaker without thinking. "Can you actually rewrite a signed contract without board approval? Or are you making promises you can't keep?" "Who? Renee?" Ji-hwan sounded off balance. "Yes. And I need to know if you're actually going to fix this, or if you're just saying what my mom wants to hear." "I'm saying I will do everything in my power to fix this." Ji-hwan's voice was firm. "The contract has a 30-day implementation period. I can call an emergency board meeting, present the error, and push for an amendment. It won't be easy, but it's possible." "And if the board says no?" Naomi asked quietly. "Then I override them. CEO prerogative for operational corrections." "Naomi, I know how this looks. I know it seems like I chose the company over you. But I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. But you should have." The words came out harder than she intended. You're asking me to trust that you'll choose differently, but you're still letting other people make decisions that affect my life without even knowing it's happening. How is that choosing presence over productivity? Ji-hwan was silent, and Naomi knew the truth had landed. Finally, you're right. I'm still operating the same way, delegating everything, assuming my team has it handled, not paying attention to details that matter. I'm sorry. You deserve better than that. So fix it. Naomi's voice was tired. Not just this contract, the whole pattern, because I can't build a life with someone who's only present when it's convenient. I will, I promise. Don't promise, just do it. She ended the call before he could respond, and stood in her shop surrounded by flowers and the two people who loved her enough to stay angry on her behalf. Did you believe him? Mr. Whitaker asked. I don't know. Naomi sank onto the counter stool. I want to, but wanting something doesn't make it true. Then wait and see what he does next. Mr. Whitaker stood slowly, patted her shoulder with his weathered hand. Actions. That's what matters, not words. When he left, Renee pulled her mother into a fierce hug. If he doesn't fix this, he doesn't deserve you. And if he does, then maybe he's actually learning to be the person he wants to be. Renee pulled back, her expression softer. But he has to prove it, Mom. You can't just believe because you want to. Naomi nodded and spent the rest of the day assembling arrangements on autopilot. Her mind stuck on the question of whether love at 53 was about trusting someone's potential or accepting their patterns. She didn't have an answer yet. Thursday morning Seoul time. Minji Park walked into Ji-hwan's office at 7:23 a.m. with coffee she'd stopped making as perfect once she realized he never really tasted it, and found her boss of 12 years staring at his laptop screen with an expression she'd never seen before. Furious and heartbroken in equal measure. The Riverside contract, he said without preamble. How did the exclusivity clause get approved without my review? Minji set down the coffee carefully. VP Kim presented it as standard operational procedure. The board approved it in your absence Monday. I flagged it for your review, but you were... I was at a hospital with Naomi. Ji-hwan's voice was flat. And now the woman I love is losing 15% of her annual revenue because I didn't pay attention. Minji sat down in the chair across from his desk, the one she'd occupied for countless meetings, and made a decision. Then let's fix it. The board won't agree to renegotiate? Then we don't ask them. We invoke CEO discretion for operational corrections. Minji was already pulling up contract templates on her tablet. The 30-day implementation window gives us legal ground. We draft an amendment maintaining local vendor partnerships. Present it as brand integration strategy. Supporting community businesses improves hotel reputation with guests. Ji-hwan looked at her, something like hope crossing his features. They'll fight it. Let them. You're still CEO until you're not. Minji's voice was firm. But Ji-hwan, I need to say something, and you're not going to like it. Say it. This happened because you're trying to do everything, be the CEO they want in Seoul and the partner Naomi needs in the States. You're stretching yourself so thin that things are slipping through cracks. Minji met his eyes. You need to choose. Actually choose. Not try to have both until you collapse from the impossible balance. I did choose. I chose Seoul for 18 months. No. You chose to delay the decision for 18 months. Minji's honesty was sharp and necessary. You're hoping something will change, that the board will suddenly be fine with a part-time CEO, or that Naomi will decide to move to Seoul. But neither of those things is going to happen. So what's your actual plan? Ji-hwan was silent, and Minji pressed forward. Here's what I think. You spent 30 years building this company, and it's remarkable. But it's also become your excuse not to build a life. She softened slightly. You told me once that you didn't know how to exist outside this office. Naomi's giving you a reason to learn. But you can't learn while you're still holding on to this with both hands. Are you telling me to resign? I'm telling you to be honest about what you actually want. Minji leaned forward. If you want to stay CEO, stay. Commit to Seoul, commit to the 18 months, and accept that Naomi might not wait. That's a valid choice. But if you want Naomi, If you want a life that includes presence instead of productivity, then stop trying to do both halfway and actually walk away. The company needs me. The company will be fine. I'll be fine. The VP will be fine. Minji's voice was gentle but immovable. You're not as indispensable as you think you are. None of us are. That's the terrifying truth of building something bigger than ourselves. Ji-hwan stood, paced to the window overlooking Seoul's skyline, the city that had been his entire world for 3 decades. I don't know how to not be CEO. Then maybe it's time to find out who you are without the title. Minji stood too, moved to stand beside him. I've watched you for 12 years. You're brilliant at this job, but you're not happy. You haven't been happy since your divorce, maybe longer. Naomi makes you happy. I see it in the way you smile when she texts, the way you actually leave the office at reasonable hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Don't let the company you built steal the life you could have. What if I choose wrong? Then you'll know you chose, instead of letting fear decide for you. Minji echoed Naomi's words from their late-night call, and Ji-hwan almost smiled. You should be CEO, he said quietly. I know. I've been waiting for you to figure that out. Minji's smile was small and real. So figure it out, make a decision, and stop trying to be everything to everyone. It's killing you. Ji-hwan turned from the window, looked at the woman who'd been his right hand for 12 years, and made a decision that terrified and liberated him in equal measure. Draft the vendor amendment. Get it to the board by end of day. And schedule a meeting with the chairman. I need to discuss my transition timeline. Minji's expression didn't change, but her eyes held approval and something that might have been relief. When? As soon as possible. I'm not doing 18 months. 3 months to transition, train you as interim CEO and close out current projects. Then I'm done. The board will fight you. Let them. Ji-hwan sat back down at his desk, and for the first time in 8 years, felt like he could breathe. I'm 55 years old. I've spent 30 years building this company. It's time to build something else. And if Naomi doesn't wait 3 months, then I'll have to trust that she meant it when she said she wasn't going anywhere. And if she doesn't, then at least I'll know I finally chose something for myself. Not because the board demanded it, or because work made it convenient. Minji nodded once, sharp and decisive. I'll start the paperwork. When she left, Ji-hwan pulled out his phone and texted Naomi. Vendor contract is being amended. You keep your account. And I need to tell you something, but not over text. Can we video call tonight your time? Her response came 20 minutes later. 8 p.m. my time. And Ji-hwan? Thank you for fixing it. He typed back. I'm fixing more than the contract. Trust me. The video call connected at exactly 8 p.m. Naomi's time, 10 a.m. Friday, Ji-hwan's. He looked tired, but more settled than she'd seen him in weeks. Something resolved in his expression that made her heart beat faster. The amendment's been approved, he said without preamble. Your contract with the Riverside property is protected for 5 years, with a renewal option. Thank you. Naomi felt relief wash through her. That means a lot. I should have caught it before it became a problem. Ji-hwan's expression was serious. Minji pointed out that I'm trying to do everything and ending up doing nothing well. She's right. What are you saying? I'm saying I gave the board my resignation timeline. 3 months transition, then I'm stepping down as CEO. Naomi's breath caught. Ji-hwan, Minji will take over as CEO. She's been ready for years. The company will be fine. And I'll be free to figure out who I am without this job. But Seoul, the 18 months? I told them no. I'll stay for 3 months to ensure a smooth transition. Then I'm done. After that, I'm coming back to the States. Not because of you, or not only because of you. Because I need to learn how to exist without performing. And I can't do that here. Naomi felt tears starting, overwhelmed by the enormity of what he was saying. That's a huge decision to make this quickly. I've been making this decision for months. I just kept pretending there was a way to avoid it. Ji-hwan's voice was steady. But you were right. I can't keep stretching between 2 lives. Something was always going to break, and I'd rather it be my attachment to this job than my relationship with you. What if you resent me for it? The fear she'd been holding finally voiced. I won't, because I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. He leaned closer to the camera. Naomi, I've been miserable for 8 years. The insomnia, the constant travel, the feeling that I'm working toward nothing except more work. I don't want that life anymore. I want Tuesday evenings and burned lunchboxes and sleeping through the night because I'm next to someone I love. I want to actually meet my daughter's girlfriend instead of just hearing about her over the phone. I want a life that feels like living instead of performing. And you're sure? Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure. The question is, are you okay with me coming back? Because I don't have a job lined up. I don't have a plan beyond figure it out as I go. I'm going to be a 55-year-old former CEO trying to build a new life from scratch. That's not exactly the stable partner you probably thought you were getting. Naomi laughed through her tears. I'm a 53-year-old florist with hypertension who collapses in her shop because she's too stubborn to ask for help. I'm not exactly stable either. So we'll be unstable together? Sounds perfect. They sat in comfortable silence, screens separating them but feeling closer than they had in days. Finally, Naomi said, 3 months feels like forever. I know, but I need to do this right. Transition the company properly. Make sure Minji has what she needs. And it gives us time to figure out logistics. Where I'll live, what I'll do, how to build this without rushing. What if you get back here and realize you miss it? The company, the work, the purpose? Then I'll find new purpose. Maybe consulting, maybe teaching, maybe learning to actually relax for the first time in 30 years. The point is, I'll figure it out without sacrificing the life I want to have. Okay, Naomi said softly. Okay? Okay, come back. In 3 months, we'll figure out the rest together. Jihuan's smile was bright and real, the expression of a man who'd finally stopped running from what he actually wanted. I'll video call twice a week. More if you want. I want. And I'll visit if I can squeeze out a weekend. Don't squeeze. Do your transition properly. I'll still be here. Naomi smiled. I'm not going anywhere. I love you, Jihuan said, the first time he'd said it out loud instead of implied. I love you too. Naomi felt the words settle into truth. Now go transition your company. I'll be here making questionable business decisions and learning to take weekends off. When the call ended, Naomi sat in her apartment above the shop and let herself feel the full spectrum of it. Hope and fear and the particular vulnerability of letting someone rearrange their entire life to build something with you. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. 2 weeks later, Clara showed up at the shop unannounced on a Saturday afternoon with takeout Thai food, and the expression that meant she was about to say something Naomi didn't want to hear. They sat in the back room, containers spread across the small table, and Clara waited exactly 4 minutes before launching in. So he's coming back in 3 months. He is. Naomi focused on her pad thai. And then what? He moves here? You move in together? He gets a job at the local coffee shop? Clara's tone was gentle but relentless. Naomi, I love that you're happy. But have you two actually discussed logistics? Or are you both just hoping it magically works out? We've talked about it. Have you? Specifically? Clara set down her fork. Where's he going to live? What's he going to do for work? What happens when he gets bored of small-town life after spending 30 years running a hotel empire? Naomi felt defensive walls rising. He's not going to get bored. How do you know? Have you seen him outside of crisis mode and courtship mode? Clara's voice stayed gentle. I'm not trying to kill your joy, baby sister. I'm trying to make sure you're thinking clearly. You almost died from stress 2 weeks ago. This man is making massive life changes to be with you. That's beautiful, but it's also a lot of pressure. I didn't ask him to quit. I know. But he's doing it anyway. And that means there's an expectation, even if it's unspoken, that this will work, that you'll be worth the sacrifice. Clara reached across the table, took Naomi's hand. What happens if 6 months in, he realizes he misses his old life? What happens if you realize you like your quiet solitude and having someone around full-time makes you anxious? Then we'll deal with it. Naomi's voice was smaller than she wanted. Will you? Or will you both pretend it's fine because he gave up so much to be here? The truth of that landed heavy. Naomi pulled her hand back, processing. What are you saying? That I should tell him not to come? I'm saying you should have the hard conversations before he uproots his entire life. Clara's expression was serious. Talk about what happens if it doesn't work. Talk about money. He's used to a certain lifestyle, you're not. Talk about space. Does he expect to move in immediately or get his own place first? Talk about what happens if his daughter needs him back in Seoul. That's a lot of negativity. That's a lot of reality. Clara softened. Naomi, you're both adults in your 50s. You've both been through marriages and losses and building lives. This isn't a romance novel where love conquers all. This is real life, where love is the starting point and everything else requires actual planning. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. I just want it to work. I know, and it might. But wanting it isn't enough. You have to build it intentionally. Clara squeezed her sister's shoulder. So call him tonight. Have the uncomfortable conversation about money and expectations and what failure looks like. Because if you can't talk about the hard stuff now, you definitely can't handle it when you're living it. When did you get so wise? Naomi asked, wiping her eyes. 3 divorces teach you things. Clara's smile was wry. Mainly that romance is easy. Partnership is hard. And the couples who make it are the ones who talk about the hard parts before they become disasters. After Clara left, Naomi sat with her phone for 20 minutes before calling Ji-hwan. It was early morning Sunday in Seoul. He answered, sounding alert, happy to hear from her. We need to talk about logistics, Naomi said without preamble. Okay. She heard him shift, could picture him sitting up, giving her full attention. Where are you going to live when you come back? My apartment above the shop is tiny. Are you expecting to move in immediately, or do you want your own space first? Ji-hwan was quiet for a moment. I hadn't thought that far ahead. What do you want? I think you should get your own place initially. Let us ease into cohabitation instead of forcing it because it's convenient. And we need to talk about money. You're used to a certain lifestyle. I'm not wealthy. I can't afford the restaurants and hotels you're used to. Naomi, I don't care about that. But you might. 6 months from now when you're bored and missing the life you had. She pushed through the discomfort. And what happens if Min-seo needs you? If there's a family emergency in Seoul? Are you going to resent being stuck here? These are good questions. Ji-hwan's voice was thoughtful, not defensive. I should have answers, and I don't yet. But here's what I know. I'll get an apartment near your shop initially. Give us both space to adjust. Money-wise, I have savings and severance. I'm not worried about finances, but I understand if the lifestyle difference feels awkward. We'll navigate it. And if it doesn't work? Naomi's voice cracked. If we try and realize geography was the only thing making this feel special, then we'll have tried. And we'll part as people who were honest enough to admit it wasn't working instead of forcing something broken. Naomi, I'm not coming back expecting perfection. I'm coming back expecting reality. Which means some days will be hard, some adjustments will hurt, and we'll have to choose each other repeatedly instead of just once. That's terrifying. Yes, but you're still coming. I'm still coming. Naomi exhaled slowly. Okay, then we'll figure it out as we go. But promise me, if you start regretting it, you'll tell me. You won't just pretend it's fine until you're miserable. I promise. Same goes for you. Deal. When they hung up, Naomi felt simultaneously more anxious and more settled. They didn't have all the answers, but they were asking the right questions. And maybe that was enough. 6 weeks into Ji-hwan's transition, Min-seo came to visit him in Seoul with her girlfriend, Ji-yeon, a stylist with a sharp eye and a gentle demeanor that immediately made Ji-hwan understand why his daughter loved her. They had dinner at his apartment, not a restaurant, just simple home-cooked food and conversation that felt like rebuilding. So you're really leaving, Min-seo said over dessert, her tone carefully neutral. I am. Ji-hwan set down his fork. 3 more weeks, Then I'm done. Because of the florist in America. Not quite a question. Because of me, Ji-hwan corrected gently. Naomi's part of it. But mainly because I've been working myself to death for 30 years, and I don't want to die at my desk. Min-seo exchanged a look with Ji-yeon, some silent communication passing between them. I was angry when you said you were stepping down. Thought you were running away from responsibility again. I was running away. Just not from responsibility. From myself. Ji-hwan met his daughter's eyes. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you growing up. I chose work over presents, and you paid the price for that. You're really doing this differently now, aren't you? Min-seo's voice was softer. I'm trying. It's terrifying. Ji-yeon, who'd been quiet, spoke up. Min-seo showed me the flowers you sent her, the Lily of the Valley arrangement. She cried for an hour. Min-seo shot her girlfriend a look, but didn't deny it. The note you wrote about the piano recital. I'd forgotten about that day. But you remembered. I remember a lot of days I wasn't present for. That's one of the few I managed to show up. Ji-hwan's throat was tight. I want to show up more. For you, for Naomi, for myself. I can't do that from a CEO's office working 80-hour weeks. What are you going to do in America? Just retire? Min-seo looked genuinely curious. I don't know yet. Maybe consulting. Maybe teaching business courses. Maybe learning to garden and failing spectacularly. The point is, I'll have time to figure it out without sacrificing everything else. Min-seo was quiet for a long moment. Then, can we visit? Ji-yeon and I have been talking about a trip to the States. Joy bloomed in Ji-hwan's chest, unexpected and enormous. You want to meet Naomi? I want to meet the woman who made my dad finally choose a life. Min-seo smiled, small and real. And yes, I'm curious about her. You talk about flowers now. You used to only talk about quarterly earnings. She taught me the language of flowers. Says everything grows in its own time. Sounds wise. Ji-yeon grinned. She is, and terrifying. And stubborn enough to call me on my patterns when I fall back into them. Ji-hwan felt warmth spread through him. I think you'll like her. I hope so. Because if you're uprooting your entire life for her, she better be worth it. Min-seo's tone was teasing, but held real affection underneath. She is. But mainly, I'm worth it. I deserve a life that feels like living. Good. Min-seo raised her water glass. To new beginnings and dads who finally figure it out before it's too late. Ji-hwan raised his own glass, and for the first time in 8 years felt like maybe, just maybe, he was getting it right. Mr. Whitaker died on a Tuesday morning in late February, peacefully in his sleep with tomatoes he'd never harvest growing in the community garden, and Naomi's phone number written on a note beside his bed labeled, "Call first." His son phoned at 6:47 a.m., and Naomi sat on the floor of her shop and cried the way she hadn't let herself cry when Robert died. Loud and messy and breaking open. Clara came, Renee came, and Ji-hwan, who'd been scheduled to fly back in 10 days, changed his flight and arrived Thursday afternoon, moving through customs and baggage claim and a taxi to her shop in record time. He found her in the back room, assembling the funeral arrangement she'd insisted on making herself, white chrysanthemums and rosemary for remembrance, purple iris for wisdom, and the last of Mr. Whitaker's own tomatoes from his garden, because he'd have appreciated the absurdity of putting vegetables in a funeral bouquet. Hey, Ji-hwan said softly, and Naomi looked up with eyes swollen from 3 days of crying. You came early. Of course I did. He sat beside her on the floor, not touching, just present. Tell me about him. So she did. Mr. Whitaker, who taught her that pruning was care, not destruction. Mr. Whitaker, who left casseroles in silence after Robert died. Mr. Whitaker, who'd looked at Ji-hwan in a hospital room and said, "Take care of her, not like she's fragile, but like she matters." He gave us his blessing before either of us knew we needed it, Naomi said, adding another stem to the arrangement. He sounds like he saw clearly. Ji-hwan finally reached out, took her hand. 2 weeks before he died, he called me. said he wanted to say something while his head was still clear. Naomi's voice caught. He said, "Stop being afraid of good things just because you've lost good things before. That boy's coming back for you. Let him." Wise man. He also said, "And if he breaks your heart, I'll haunt him from whatever comes next." Ji-hwan laughed softly. "I believe it." They sat in comfortable silence, Ji-hwan watching Naomi work, her hands steady despite the grief. Finally, she said, "I'm glad you're here early, even though I hate the reason." "Me too. The funeral's Saturday. Will you come?" "I'm not going anywhere." The funeral was small and perfect. Mr. Whitaker's son, a handful of neighbors, the community garden volunteers, and Naomi's small family. Ji-hwan stood beside her holding her hand, and when it was her turn to speak, she talked about lessons learned in soil and silence, about the grace of letting things grow in their own time, about the gift of someone who stayed without needing to fix. After the service, Mr. Whitaker's son pressed an envelope into Naomi's hands. "He left this for you. Said to give it to you after." Inside, in Mr. Whitaker's careful handwriting, were instructions for dividing his garden plots. Most going to the community, but one specific raised bed designated for Naomi and that Korean fellow who finally learned the difference between a lily and a tulip. The note continued, "Plant peonies. They take 3 years to bloom from rhizomes, so you'll have to be patient and committed. Sounds about right for you two. And Naomi, you deserve this. Stop arguing with happiness." Naomi showed Ji-hwan the note, and they both stood in the community garden after everyone had left, looking at the plot Mr. Whitaker had given them. It was March now, still cold enough that planting would have to wait, but the space was there, waiting, patient, full of potential. 3 years, Ji-hwan said quietly. That's how long peonies take to bloom from rhizomes. Naomi leaned into his warmth. He's asking if we're in this for the long term. Are we? I think we are. Ji-hwan turned to face her fully, his hands cupping her face with a tenderness that made her throat tight. Then let's plant them, as soon as the ground thaws. And in 3 years when they bloom, we'll know we made it. And if we don't make it, then someone else will enjoy the flowers. But I think we will. They stood in Mr. Whitaker's garden, surrounded by the sleeping earth and the promise of spring, and Naomi felt grief and hope tangled together in a way that felt like healing. Ji-hwan officially returned in mid-March, 3 weeks after Mr. Whitaker's funeral, with 2 suitcases and a calm resolve that looked good on him. He'd found an apartment 4 blocks from Ellison Flowers, small, furnished, month-to-month lease, and moved in with the efficiency of someone who'd lived out of hotels for decades and knew how to make anywhere feel temporary. This is it. Naomi stood in his living room, which contained a couch, a table, and absolutely no personal touches beyond the jade plant she'd given him 9 months ago, now thriving on the windowsill. For now, until we figure out what comes next. Ji-hwan looked around with her, seeing it through her eyes. I didn't want to presume. I know, and I appreciate that. Naomi sat on the couch, patted the space beside her. But at some point, this needs to feel like home, not a hotel. At some point, Ji-hwan agreed, settling beside her. But first, I need to figure out who I am when I'm not performing CEO. That's going to take time. They fell into a rhythm over the following weeks, Tuesday and Thursday evenings like before, but now also Saturday mornings at the farmer's market. Sunday dinners with Renee, who was cautiously warming to Ji-hwan's permanent presence, and random Wednesday afternoons when Naomi would close the shop early, and they'd drive to nowhere in particular. Ji-hwan struggled with the lack of structure more than he'd expected. Without meetings and deadlines, and the constant demands of the company, he found himself unmoored, sleeping too much some days, and wandering the town at dawn on others. Naomi watched him navigate this transition with patience and occasional tough love. You're allowed to be lost, she told him one morning, when he showed up at the shop at 6 a.m., looking tired and frustrated. You spent 30 years being one thing. It's going to take more than a month to figure out what comes next. I feel useless, Ji-hwan admitted. You're not useless. You're resting. There's a difference. And when you're ready, you'll find something that matters, but you don't have to rush. In April, when the ground finally thawed enough for planting, they returned to Mr. Whitaker's designated plot with peony rhizomes Naomi had ordered specifically for the occasion. 3 varieties, chosen for their symbolism. Pink for romance and happy marriage, white for honor and healing, coral for prosperity and new beginnings. Renee came with them, and surprisingly, Minseo and Ji-yeon, who'd flown in for a week-long visit and were staying in Ji-hwan's spare room, cramped but happy. Clara showed up with coffee and commentary. It was an odd collection of people, but it felt right. Family, chosen and blood, gathered to plant something that wouldn't bloom for 3 years. So we just bury these ugly roots and wait 3 years? Minseo asked, examining the rhizomes skeptically. That's exactly what we do. Naomi demonstrated, creating a shallow hole, positioning the rhizome with the eyes pointing up, covering it gently with soil. Peonies are patient flowers. They don't bloom the first year, sometimes not even the second, but once they establish, they bloom for decades. Sounds like a metaphor, Ji-yeon said with a smile. Everything in a garden is a metaphor if you pay attention, Naomi replied. They planted in companionable silence, hands in soil, the April sun warm on their backs. Ji-hwan worked beside Naomi, their movements synchronized in a way that spoke of growing familiarity, of learning each other's rhythms. When all 9 rhizomes were planted, 3 of each color, arranged in a pattern that would create a riot of bloom when they finally flowered, Naomi stood back and surveyed their work. 3 years from now, this will be spectacular. 3 years from now, where will we be? Renee asked, the question hanging in the spring air. Hopefully right here, seeing these bloom. Ji-hwan looked at Naomi, his expression open and honest. That's the plan, anyway. Good plan, Clara declared. Very good plan, Minseo added, leaning into Ji-yeon. They took a photo, all 6 of them, kneeling beside the freshly planted garden bed, soil on their hands and hope in their eyes. It wasn't a grand gesture or a formal commitment ceremony, but it felt like one anyway. A promise made to the earth and to each other. We'll be here when these bloom. By summer, Ji-hwan had found his rhythm, or something close to it. He'd started consulting work, small businesses needing strategic planning, a couple of university guest lectures on international hospitality management, and a regular column for a business journal about transitioning out of high-pressure leadership. It wasn't the empire he'd run, but it was enough. More importantly, it was flexible. Naomi hired part-time help for the shop, a college student named Maya, who had a gift with arrangements and didn't mind the early mornings. It meant Naomi could actually take weekends off, could close at reasonable hours, could breathe without feeling like the business would collapse if she stepped away. They settled into what they started calling their 10 weeks, 4 times a year plan. Ji-hwan spent 10 consecutive weeks in town each quarter, then returned to Seoul for 2 weeks to see Minseo, handle consulting clients there, and maintain his Korean business connections. It wasn't perfect, but it was sustainable. I miss you when you're gone, Naomi admitted during one of their video calls while he was in Seoul for his August trip. I miss you too. But I also love seeing Minseo. Ji-hwan was sitting in his daughter's apartment. He'd sold his Seoul penthouse and now stayed with her when he visited. And I love knowing I'm coming back to you in 12 days. 12 days is a long time. It's nothing compared to 3 years. He smiled, and she knew he was thinking about the peonies, still just green stems and leaves, no blooms yet. We're patient people now. Since when? Since we decided to be. In September, Ji-hwan moved out of his month-to-month apartment and into Naomi's place above the shop. It required negotiation about space and routines and the fact that Naomi liked silence in the morning, while Ji-hwan wanted to talk through his coffee. They worked through it with the same patience they brought to the peonies, making adjustments, giving each other grace, choosing compromise over being right. This is weird, Naomi said one morning, watching Ji-hwan make breakfast in her kitchen like he belonged there. Good weird or bad weird? Good weird. Scary good weird. She accepted the coffee he handed her. I didn't think I'd ever share space with someone again. We don't have to if it's too much. It's not too much. It's just new. And I'm not good at new. Neither am I. so we'll be not good at it together. Ji-hwan kissed the top of her head, a gesture so casual and comfortable, it made her heart squeeze. October brought Min-seo and Ji-yeon for another visit, this time for 3 weeks. They got engaged in Mr. Whitaker's garden, beside the peony plot that was now thick with foliage, but still no flowers. Ji-hwan cried when Min-seo asked for his blessing, and Naomi stood beside him holding his hand, while their daughters, because that's what they were becoming, celebrated with champagne and plans. They want to get married next summer, Ji-hwan told Naomi that night, lying in bed in the dark. That's wonderful. Min-seo asked if we'd host, part of the celebration here, so Ji-yeon's American relatives don't have to fly to Seoul. Of course. Naomi turned to face him. We can do the garden reception here. If the peonies bloom in time, it'll be perfect. They won't bloom until 2027. The wedding's summer 2026. Then we'll use different flowers. Peonies aren't the only beautiful thing we can grow. She traced his face in the darkness. But they will bloom eventually, and when they do, we'll still be here. Promise? Promise. Spring 2027 arrived with particular anticipation. Whitaker's garden, now officially named in his honor with a small wooden plaque Renee had commissioned, showed the first signs of what they'd been waiting 3 years to see. Tight buds forming at the end of strong stems, promising the bloom everyone had been patient enough to wait for. Naomi checked them obsessively, dragging Ji-hwan to the garden every morning before the shop opened. They're taking forever, she complained on a Tuesday in late April. They're taking exactly as long as they need to. Ji-hwan crouched beside the plants, examining the swelling buds with the focus he used to reserve for quarterly reports. Mr. Whitaker knew what he was doing. 3 years to prove we'd last. We've lasted. Naomi's voice was certain. We have. They'd weathered Ji-hwan's existential crisis in month 4, when he'd briefly considered returning to corporate work because being just a consultant felt insufficient. They'd navigated Naomi's health scare in year 2, when her hypertension medication needed adjusting, and she'd scared them both by ending up in the ER again. They'd survived holidays with combined families that were chaotic and beautiful, and occasionally exhausting. They'd learned each other's patterns. Ji-hwan's tendency to overwork when anxious. Naomi's habit of withdrawing when overwhelmed. They'd learned how to fight fair, how to apologize effectively, how to choose each other even when it was hard. And now, 3 years later, they stood in a garden waiting for flowers to bloom as proof that patience and commitment created something beautiful. The first peony opened on May 3rd, a pink one, lush and full and smelling like everything good. Naomi called everyone, Renee and Clara, Min-seo and Ji-yeon, via video call from Seoul, even Maya from the shop. They gathered in Mr. Whitaker's garden at sunset, this odd collection of people who'd become family, and celebrated a flower that had taken 3 years to bloom. To patience, Renee toasted with the wine she'd brought. To commitment, Min-seo added from the phone screen Ji-hwan held up. To love that grows slow and lasts long, Clara said, looking pointedly at Naomi and Ji-hwan. To Mr. Whitaker, Naomi said quietly. Who knew we'd need 3 years to figure out what we were building? They drank and laughed and took too many photos of a single flower, because it wasn't really about the flower. It was about what the flower represented. Proof that some things were worth waiting for. That love at 53 wasn't a consolation prize, but a conscious choice, made and remade daily. That evening, after everyone had left, Naomi and Ji-hwan sat on the bench beside the peony plot, watching the sun set over the garden. The pink peony was joined now by white and coral buds beginning to open. The full riot of color Mr. Whitaker had planned starting to reveal itself. I never thought I'd be here, Naomi said softly. In a garden? At 56? In love, with a future that feels bigger than my past. She leaned into Ji-hwan's shoulder. I thought the good parts of my life were over when Robert died. That I'd just maintain until I didn't. And now? Now I know that 53 wasn't an ending. It was permission to start over and do it right this time. She looked up at him. Thank you for walking into my shop looking for flowers. Thank you for calling me on my patterns and refusing to let me fix you. Jihuan kissed her forehead. You taught me that presence matters more than productivity. That's not a small gift. You taught me that letting people in isn't weakness. That's not small either. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that came from 3 years of learning each other's rhythms, of building something sustainable instead of romantic. The peonies would bloom for weeks now, and then they'd die back for the winter, and next spring they'd bloom again, the cycle repeating, reliable and beautiful in its constancy. Same time next year? Jihuan asked, his voice light, but his meaning heavy. And the year after that. And the year after that. Naomi took his hand, laced their fingers together. I'm not going anywhere. Neither am I. The peony blooms nodded in the evening breeze, pink and white and coral against the darkening sky. And in that moment, everything felt exactly as it should be. Imperfect, hard-won, and worth every second of patience it took to get there. Love at 53 wasn't about fairy tales or rescue. It was about two people choosing to grow together, slowly and intentionally, roots deepening with each passing season. It was about learning that starting over wasn't failure. It was the bravest thing you could do. And as the last light faded from the garden and Jihuan pulled Naomi closer, she thought about Mr. Whitaker's note, about the instruction to plant peonies that would take 3 years to bloom. He'd been right, as he so often was. They'd needed those 3 years. Not to prove their love, but to build it properly. With patience, intention, and the understanding that some things couldn't be rushed. The peonies had bloomed right on schedule, and so had they.